Alright, so this is how I'm using AI to automate all components of my info business in order to scale my coaching offers, info offers for me and my clients in 2026. So one of the most effective funnels, let's start with that, right? For coaches, consultants, even agencies, is a IG profile funnel. Now, this is nothing new, right? If you're a coach, if you're an info in any way, you probably used or seen other people use this funnel before. So essentially drive traffic to your Instagram profile and then have conversations on Instagram, set the appointments, and then close the calls. Now, here's what's changing with this funnel in 2026 and going forward. The main thing is going to be the implementation of AI into this funnel. So what can we do? How can we leverage AI and automations in order to streamline this funnel, make it more profitable, more efficient to run, and also have higher margins for ourselves, right? Because in the past, you'd have to have 2 or 3 setters, potentially even closers, and just have a ton of mess, right, in your Instagram profile in order to get qualified calls and appointments. But now we can use AI, right? So the first thing that you want to implement in order to make this funnel really work is going to be an AI appointment setter, right? Fairly straightforward. There's a couple ways you can set this up. I actually made a video on this channel about how I set it up for myself. You can use make.com, you can use Cloud Code, whatever you want to do, N8N, God forbid. But you can do it in many different ways. Essentially, the point is that you want to have a way of using, well, I recommend Claude, right, in your Instagram inbox. But that's not enough, right? I'm sure you've seen videos of people kind of, oh, Claude Code is now answering my Instagram DMs and stuff like that. Cool, all good, but that's not enough to be considered an appointment setter. There's 2 things really that we need in order to have an actual, appointment setting entity, agent, whatever you want to call it, that actually, qualifies, nurtures, and books appointments for you. So the first one is going to be let's call it, training, memory base, let's call it memory / training. Because if you just put Claude without any information on what it needs to do, or information about your business, information about the setting process you have, it's essentially like opening Claude in your browser and prompting random stuff to it. Sure, it works, but it's not, it's not an appointment setter, right? So this is the first thing that you need to put in place. And then the other one is going to be the organization. So CRM, God, my handwriting is awful. But yeah, your CRM and just any way, a pipeline, like any sort of system that you can leverage in order to qualify leads or disqualify, right? Nurture leads, and then book appointments, right? This is extremely important. If you don't keep track of things in a system, then once again, it's just like a random messages flying around. You don't know what's happening, and you're not going to be able to control what the AI is doing, right? So let's break these 2 things down, because once you have these 2 components built into your Instagram profile, well, that's where you can actually, replace human setters, right? And you can actually have, a setting process that's efficient, that books calls in a calendar, and that it also works 24/7. Because of course, setters, are never going to be able to work 24/7, and they're going to be more expensive. Now, I would argue that having an 8 player appointment setter in your team is still worth it. However, you can still leverage AI tremendously well, even if you do have setter, right? And maybe going from having 3 setters who are kind of crappy to have just 1 killer setter with the right systems in place, with the right AI in place to actually make a killer job. So how does the memory and training work? Well, this is where you need some sort of agent workflow, right? You can build this with Cloud Code, fairly easy. I actually have it built with make.com because I built it quite a while ago before Cloud Code came into the scene. But essentially, you want to have a way of, first of all, making it have a memory. So it has to remember, obviously, all the conversations, all the previous messages, everything happens. And then it has to be trained, right? So that can be either with a system prompt, very simple, or with some sort of like agentic workflow where it can access a database of previous setting conversations, previous combos, content that you've made, sales calls, right, and so on. A database of content that the setter can access to reference kind of what it's doing, right? And the technical build, like I said, we're not going to discuss it in detail in this video. It'll take like 3 hours. But of course, if you want it implemented, I do offer this implementation within the down for you offer that I have. So you can just, shameless plug, check the link in the description if you're interested in like have all this implemented. But the point that I wanna put across is that without these elements, essentially, sure, Claude is answering your DMs, but it's not a setter, right? It's just like a bot. The key difference is it will be made by having these two things, the memory and the training. Like it has to remember what happened, both in previous conversations and obviously the conversation that it's having with the lead, and it has to be trained. Like it has to follow specific instructions, specific system prompts, and also know kind of what you're about with giving it access to a database of content and previous conversations and all that. Without that, it's just going to be a bot. It's not going to be intelligent enough to replace an actual human appointment setter. The second thing is going to be the CRM, right? Like you need some sort of pipeline, some sort of system to keep track of everything that happens, right? Not only that, but you need to be able to tell the setter that it has to move things, within the pipeline, right? So I'll give you like a quick case example. You get a new lead, right? So you get a message in your inbox that hits your Instagram. Now the setter has to know that this is, in the pipeline, that this is a new lead, right? And it has to be able to categorize this new message as a new lead. Now, say this lead then goes forward in a conversation, right? Let's say it's chatting with the setter, just say chatting with the AI. Well, this stage has to move, right? It's now in a conversation. And you need to be able to know that, like, how many people are here, how many people are in a conversation, and then how many of these people actually go and, say get a link to book the call, right? And then how many of these people actually book the call. And these can all be, pipeline stages, but the setter needs to be able to like move everybody into these stages and act accordingly, right? Most importantly, know that the lead is in the stage or this stage or whatever. And then, from this, you can also automate follow-up sequences, right? You can automate follow-up sequences to the people that, receive the link but don't book, or that book a call, right? If you want to nurture them, send them more content. Like all these steps are crucial in the appointment setting process. If you just have Claude plugged into your Instagram without any like knowledge of this, it's not going to work. It's not going to be able to replace an actual human setter. So you need all this to make it work. Follow-ups are a bit tricky on Instagram because there's like Instagram rules. For instance, you can only follow up like once after the lead doesn't message you, but that's for another video. There's ways to work around that if you really want to. And that's the other thing, like you have to build all this to also make sure you don't get banned on Instagram, right? Because it can happen when you have too many messages, or when you send too many messages. You might violate some rules, stuff like that. Instagram makes it very, very hard for us coaches. But anyway, that's for another video. So you need to have all this built in your setter. The build doesn't matter. Like I said, you can use Cloud Code, which, by the way, if you prompt it to build you something like that, with enough trial and error, you can actually get there. It's a lot better if you can know how every stage should work. That's why a build like this, you should, unless you're like really expert with AI, you should have someone else probably build it for you. But it's not too complicated to build, and most importantly, it's completely custom, right? The important thing is actually this piece of the system, CRM, the pipeline, and like having all the automation so that you know exactly where each lead is in the process. Like I said, once you have that in place, you can then essentially target those people with actual, marketing content sequences, right? What do I mean by that? Say a lead books a call, right? You need to be able to, first of all, know exactly how to reach it, and have the setter know exactly, where that lead is, and then go through a whole series of steps. These can be, content, it can be emails, it can be actual, setting messages. Like you can have your AI setter, send specific things based on where the lead is. Say it's a new lead, same thing, but different sequence, of course, right? So how will the setter know all this? Well, you have to program it and structure it in a way that allows you to do this. Otherwise, it's never going to be able to replace a human setter. That's the main thing that people like mistake or are mistaken about. Like AI can do it, but it has to be done so extremely well structured that not a lot of people are doing it, right? So you might have the occasional coach who tries it out, connects Claude to Instagram, and then a mess happens, right? You lose track of things. You don't have proper, like I said, proper system in place, CRM management and pipeline management to like make it work. So it's just an utter mess. But if you do structure things in the right way and you have the right, marketing and content sequences in place, this can, absolutely kill it for you. Personally, I have this implemented as of now, and also like in the past year, in my own B2C offer. So, I mean, you guys all know how crazy B2C can be in terms of lead quality, and the setting process is very messy. So having AI to handle all that wasn't easy. But we've been able to do anything anywhere from 10K to 30K in revenue from this AI setter alone in connected into Instagram, right? So it works. It was an absolute nightmare to like figure it out, because we did this 2025, so we didn't have cloud code, and it just was a bit more difficult. Now it's a lot easier. So if you don't have this implemented into your IG profile funnel, I think you're missing out, quite frankly, because even if you do want to have human setters, all this, like, you can still plug in this part of the system, right, and help your setters tremendously. You can have the follow-up part of the system implemented so that the setters don't have to work too, that hard on following up, right? It's just better to like keep track of things. You can have the AI analyze conversations as well, qualify the leads, give you more info, or give your setters more info about the actual, quality of leads. So it's just something that you absolutely need. Now the rest of the funnel doesn't change, right? In terms of traffic, you'll drive. Jesus, what's wrong with this iPad? You'll drive your traffic to the top of funnel. Then you have your content. The only and these things are, I would keep real, like no AI in your content. That's still a bit weird. If you're a coach, like you want to have real content. And then the DM process is where the AI comes in, right? So the actual bottom, mid to bottom of funnel is where you're gonna have the AI in the back end to take care of things. This is how I would implement AI in your coaching offer. This is how I've done it myself. I've done it for a few clients as well. And like I said, if you need any help with implementing this, you can chat link in the description. We can have a chat, or you can just go out there on the wild internet, figure all this by yourself, doable, and implement it yourself. All right, take care.